everybody? Welcome to the Beantown Beatdown.
Matthew Burris.
Gabe Chavez.
Yep. First and foremost, New England Patriots beat the Cincinnati Bengals.
Whoop, whoop.
Yep, smoked them.
We knew it was going to happen. All right, when we talked about going back to Cincinnati, we knew we were going to take it to them.
Yep, and of course, we still got to beat the Bills. I mean, we did clinch our playoff spot, but we still got to play the Bills, and we still got to beat them. We can't get complacent now that the playoffs are around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Right, good.
So
we mixed our cider with lemonade here.
Yep. Cheers to that.
Cheers. All right, not bad at all.
Yeah. So now we're gonna get into some news. First and foremost, as we all know, the rematch is on for February 22nd. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury Part 2 for the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the World, also the Lineal Heavyweight Championship of the World.
Yeah.
I said in the last episode, this is one of the fights that needs to happen in 2020. We need to see this fight, as well as Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder as well. That was another big heavyweight title fight in boxing we need to have happen.
Yeah.
And now we're getting the rematch. It's set for February 22nd. That's going to be on pay-per-view in Las Vegas. Don't know where in Vegas it's going to be, but we'll definitely let you know as in the months to come. But this is really great. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And also, I'll try to do a pay-per-view party. I mean, my mom's like, no pay-per-view parties, and stuff. But it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you and Michael come, if you guys don't have any plans that day, maybe chip in $20 each, maybe.
All right, let's see how it goes. Yep.
Yeah, and but definitely looking forward to this. The first fight ended in a draw.
Yeah,
and both guys were knocked down, but this one, I think this one has to end in a knockout. It cannot go to a decision, because even if one of the fighters wins, it'll be looked at as, well, you still didn't finish him. So this fight definitely has to end in a knockout. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I think you make a good point, a damn good point. And the fans have been waiting for this, and like you said, we've talked on previous episodes about the wait, the anticipation, just that we needed to see this happen. A draw is always unsatisfying, right?
Yeah, well, they say a draw is like kissing your sister. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a little expert in that. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, we're gonna fight now. You guys want to see a real fight, by the way?
Yeah, I bet both your sisters are like, ew, gross. I
know, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, this is gonna be good. I mean, will it do like big numbers like Mayweather's fights? Don't know. I mean, because Deontay Wilder is a big name in sports.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, he was just named by the Pope as an ambassador of the world when it comes to sports.
Wow, no way.
Yeah, I mean, you get that from the Pope. I mean, for a guy, not too bad for a big, tall black guy from Alabama.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and so I mean, but we'll have to see what the numbers are going to be, but also, how you said before, just because, box office numbers aren't big, that doesn't mean the movie is a success or it's not a success. It could mean the same thing with boxing. It's just that, Deontay Wilder, he's a big name in sports, but as far as, mainstream celebrity, like for people outside, who don't follow boxing much,
exactly.
he doesn't have that appeal like Mayweather.
Exactly. That's and that's the thing. As the casual fan here, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna say that that's true. That Mayweather, and there's certain names that you do hear in the outside world, and yeah, he's definitely not one of them. But even though I know that inside inside the world, it's like it's like probably all you guys have been talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, both fighters have also been on Joe Rogan's podcast. Yeah, both Fury and Wilder, they've been on Joe Rogan's podcast, and
and that's a big way to reach a wider audience. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Joe Rogan, he's had a lot of famous people, comedians, singers, rappers, movie stars on there. He had Edward Norton on there, and it's also funny because you and I have talked before. You do look like a young Edward Norton. When he was like in American History X, and then that the People versus Larry Flint.
Yeah, I guess I've been told that. What have I been told that? Been told some people, but yeah, I think Larry Flint at least once.
Yeah, what's also amazing is how he managed to be in a relationship with Courtney Love, man. Well, Courtney was sort of like kind of going through her drug troubles and stuff like that. Well, I think actually she said that Larry Flint paid for her rehab, and then she got sober and clean and stuff. But yeah, you do look like Edward Norton, though. And it's also funny because your boyfriend Michael, he looks like Tom. He looks like Tom Hanks, actually.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, from Forrest Gump.
Yeah. No, I know Tom Hanks. That is interesting. I was gonna say, people at work have said Anderson Cooper for him.
Really, Anderson Cooper?
Yeah.
Well, Anderson Cooper without the white hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see it. I can see that. Frankly, a little bit more than Tom Hanks, but I do like that too.
Yeah, exactly. But getting back to the fight, as far as well, again, it won't be like Mayweather Pacquiao where it's like like nobody can buy a ticket to this fight or anything like that. I think the celebrities, they're gonna get their free tickets or at least get a discount, because with Mayweather Pacquiao, I mean, like everybody wanted to see that fight so much. Is like people from all over the world, like those international business people, like in Saudi Arabia or in Europe and stuff. Everybody flown in. I mean, it was like you couldn't even get a room on the Strip. I mean, you couldn't even get a Motel 6, in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with this fight, it'll be big, but you could maybe get a Motel 6 or.
I think you actually probably could get a Motel 6 or a Travel Lodge or whatever.
Holiday Inn.
Yes. Motel, hotel, Holiday Inn.
Yeah, exactly. So with this fight, definitely looking forward to it. And like I said, we need this for the heavyweight division in boxing, and now we're finally gonna get it. And hopefully, we can get. I think with this one, after this one, we'll either get Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz 3 or Joshua versus Wilder. Yeah, because I don't see Tyson Fury winning this. I got Deontay Wilder. I'm gonna go on a limb and say Wilder knocks him out in 5 or 6 rounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Good prediction. Well, as always, we'll be looking back on that.
Yeah. And now we're gonna get into the next subject. This is actually more of a discussion, and of course, as you can see in the title, it says "Live from New York." It's Lizzo's booty. Lizzo, of course, not hosting Saturday Night Live, but she's the musical guest. Hosting will be Eddie Murphy. That's going to be very historic.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and we're going to get into a little SNL talk as well. But first, Lizzo, of course, causing controversy with the shaking her booty at the Laker game, when they were playing her song Juice, and the cheerleaders, the Laker girls were doing it. Some have said, like, hey, that's Lizzo living her best life. She's all about body positivity. And others were like, well, this is a sporting event. Kids are here. She should have shown some class. My thing on this, and we've talked about this in past episodes, is that, sporting events are not are not meant to be family oriented. You know, whether it's MLB, whether it's the NBA, the UFC, pro wrestling, I got to put in this mix too because like fans, you know, they've been known to be raunchy and stuff like that. Even though kids still go to wrestling, whether it's WWE or some independent show.
Yeah.
And
yeah, well, I think that's actually very different, though. I mean, I would jump in and say, you know, I do kind of understand where they're coming from. I think team sports and wrestling, you know, or UFC, whatever, are very, you know, those are two very different camps, and I would see, you know, again, you know, I don't. Yeah, I think we mostly agree on this, but I would say I can see where they're coming from when it comes to like team sports. You know, you could say that those are you know that those are family friendly, even if people, you know, tend to yell profanities. It's like not the same thing as you know, as certainly WWE, where it's all, you know, where it's all about the violence and that and the show, you know.
well, yeah, I mean, because for example, when and I didn't see this, but I heard this years ago when Vampiro, the wrestler Vampiro, who wrestled in WCW, who's also a friend of Insane Clown Posse. He was working an independent show, and I think he had just gotten out of rehab, you know, Vicodin and OxyContin, and the crowd was chanting Vicodin, Vicodin, OxyContin, OxyContin, and you know, and you're just like, oh, come on, guys, you know, the guy, he's a human being at the end of the day, you know, like he's trying to get his house in order. It's like, come on, you know, show a little respect, and, or like, and
that's I mean, and that's I don't know. I mean, I'm you know, I know that it seems cool. That's the other thing. It seems cool and that type of thing. But yeah, it's also kind of making, you know, especially at that point, it's making light of his struggles. You know?
Yeah, or if there's a wrestler that they don't like, or there's a segment that's going on, you know, they'll be like, you know, like shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, or they'll say, let's see what else I mean, I've actually heard them say like, or if it's a wrestler that really gets under their skin, they really don't like, you know, I mean, we heard this back in the Attitude Era whenever we watch Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah.
They chant asshole, asshole. Yeah, I remember they were doing that in a segment with Stephanie and Triple H. You know, they were going asshole, asshole, and Triple H goes, "Shut your holes."
Exactly. So anyway, that's where the entire fan base, you know, can be shouting those things, right? But I think it's very different in like you know, baseball, basketball, football, those types of things.
Baseball.
Where I mean, baseball, yeah, but it's it's the random person. It's the one random person in the crowd that will yell, you know, curses. But it's like normally it is actually set up for, you know, in case kids are there. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I kind of understand. I mean, like when we went to that baseball game, the one where we live streamed on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like
we watched the Sox and the Cardinals. Yeah.
Blue Jays. Yeah, and you know, I didn't hear any people swearing or anything like that. And you know me, I got the mouth of a sailor, and
you're right.
But I noticed that there was a little kid there. I was like, maybe I'll be let me be on. Plus, I haven't been at a baseball game in a while. It's like,
yeah.
And plus, I was in front of your boyfriend and your boyfriend's friend. So I was like, let me try to be on my best behavior a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but you know,
so it's like that. I mean, yeah, most people, that's what they do in team sports, going to team sports.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with chanting "you suck." I mean, it's not for something that kids should say. I mean, but "you suck" has been around forever. You know, it's been around since our families, our moms and dads were watching sports at events. And, you know, but it's like, but if you chanted something like, you know, like, "Oh, you fucking suck, you fag," or you know, it's like, come on, guys, you know, we got kids here. You know, it's like, show a little class.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I say that. Yeah, I think team sports are a different thing. But yeah, and then also, you know, cursing versus twerking. You know, that also is very different. It's like I actually could go back and forth on that because I do think it can be like raunchy or over sexual, but I also am like, I don't know. It's like I don't want to say that like, you know, that like that like using the body is like worse. Like I don't want to say that that like that like someone's body is worse than cursing, or certainly not worse than like than like violence that draws blood. You know what I mean?
Well, and also keep in mind, this is at a Laker game. We all know the famous Laker girls. They're known for twerking and dancing and stuff like that.
Well, that's the interesting thing. They're known for like cheerleader dancing and that type of thing. Are they actually known for twerking? Is the question.
I think I haven't watched a Laker game in a while, even though I'm a LeBron fan. But I've seen. But there have been times when cheerleaders have incorporated twerking into their things. But so it's like,
so if they have, then it's kind of a moot point. But
it's like one of those. It's just one of those things where like Eddie Murphy said to Richard Pryor, go have a Coke and a smile. It's like, look, I mean, it's enter at your own risk. It's like, if you want family friendly entertainment, you have Cirque du Soleil, you have Disney on Ice, there's Sesame Street on Broadway, there's the Blue Man Group,
right?
You got all these options. It's like, don't act like as if because now sports is no longer family friendly. We don't have any stuff to take little kids to. It's like you got plenty of options. It's don't cry for me, Argentina.
Exactly. That's true. So yeah, I think we should be aware that stuff like that might happen in sports, and like so yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question of should cheerleaders twerk. I mean, like I said, I didn't really know if they did or not. I didn't, and in a way, I'm like, I don't know if they should, but just because again, it's a wide audience, but. But again, it is the body, like, it's like, we do gotta loosen up a little bit.
Exactly.
Compared to France, we're like complete prudes,
Yeah, exactly. And plus, there was also a rumor saying that Lizzo was getting banned from the Laker games. And actually, the person who's in charge of operations at Staples Center said that, no, she's not banned from the Staples Center. In fact, actually, in a couple of months, the Grammys are going to be at the Staples Center, and Lizzo's going to be performing. So yeah,
she might do the same thing, and it's like
yeah, exactly. It's I mean, yeah, there is some stuff. I mean, look, we're not parents, I mean, we're uncles, but I mean, well, my niece is a lot older. She's like, about to graduate high school, and yours are like still in elementary school, right? They're like second grade, third grade.
So, well, I mean, there's my new niece who's, who's 1 year old, but yeah, my other niece is 9, maybe 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah. So I do try and think about that. I try and think.
Well, yeah, it's like
I do want to make sure she's doesn't see something.
Yeah, it's like it's like, look, that's when you talk to your kid before you go. You go like, look, you're gonna see some things, people doing things, or you're gonna hear some things. Just stick with me. If you have questions, I'll answer it after we leave the event.
Yeah.
But don't try to repeat stuff.
Exactly.
Just we'll have a talk about this, and
I mean, that's parenting. That is parenting, and I think this whole, a lot of the fights around, this stuff on TV, whatever. I mean, I kind of do agree that, we shouldn't be on TV, you get too desensitized, but stuff around like, oh, it's, it's on TV or it's on or at the sporting event, stuff wasn't appropriate for children. Like some of that is just, you don't want to actually do the parenting, like oh, it should be censored, before my child could ever possibly see it. Like that part, some of that is like you don't want to actually exactly, and it's like you don't actually want to do the parenting. You don't want to do what really should be the parenting, which is what you just said.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, if Lizzo was supposed to be in Boston, but she has the flu and had to cancel. But I think that she's going to save her strength for Saturday Night Live. But if she ever does come to Boston, ever come to a Celtic game, hey, she can do all the twerking she wants, But also, speaking of Saturday Night Live, Scarlett Johansson, she was great on there.
Oh yes, indeed.
Did you see?
I did. Yeah, I told you I actually could watch it live this time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how she kind of poked at her fiance saying like, "Oh, if my fiance, what would I ever do without my fiance's check?" It's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
she's
well, yeah. If the monologue isn't good, what are they gonna do? Fire my fiance?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah. I mean, come on, Scarlett Johansson has fuck you money at this point, and
yeah.
well, I mean, Colin, he's a nice guy and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
I mean, I like him in the Weekend Updates with Michael Shea, and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
and people have been. I mean, people have been complaining for the last 3 years that Saturday Night Live isn't as funny as it used to be. It's kind of been hit and miss. I think with me, I don't watch it religiously. I just watch it if there's a good host on there.
Yeah,
But for the most part, so most some of the actors are actually pretty good on there. Kyle Mooney, he's funny.
yeah.
They have that new blonde girl. I forget her name, but she's funny. Heidi, not Heidi, but Heidi's good on there.
Hmm.
80 Bryant, um, Buchanan. I'm always forgetting her name. The one that was in that movie with Mila Kunis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kristen Wiig.
No, not
No,
Kristen
because
Wiig.
she's not there anymore. And,
Yeah. McCannon.
Kate McKinnon.
Yeah, Kate McKinnon. Yeah,
Yes,
she's.
Kate McKinnon is pretty fantastic. She does everything. Like she
Yeah.
did Hillary. She's doing Elizabeth Warren. She does like
Yeah.
all of the what was it, the Target lady, like all
Yeah.
these crazy characters. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, well, Keenan's always funny as well.
Mhm.
Keenan's been funny for years. I mean, and
Yeah.
also, Ched Reed, I think that's his name, the black guy, the one with the bald head. Yeah, he's funny. He's funny too. So it's
Yeah.
like,
And what was I gonna say? Cecily Strong. I think Cecily.
oh yeah, I almost forgot Cecily.
Fantastic. Yeah, she really is fantastic.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, she's really gonna go places
Mhm.
after Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so looking forward to seeing Lizzo and of course Eddie Murphy on there.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see what they're gonna do with Eddie and see if Eddie still got it because I know he's going back to stand up and stuff. So
Yes, okay.
yep. So
Yeah,
now
I haven't heard much from him. So.
yeah. So now we're gonna get into our next subject, the deep dive. So Gate, take it away.
All right. So, there actually was a story that that perfectly involves current politics and what we talk about here on the show. So there, I said that I do have to talk about this, which is that there is, even though it does get into the weeds of some of the other stuff, unfortunately in the news, but whatever. So there is actually a pretty staunchly Trump supporting fighter, and he did a whole MAGA hat with the president photo shoot.
Oh, I know who you're talking about,
Yes.
Colby Covington.
Covington, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually was like, I gotta check my notes on this, but yeah. So Colby Covington went up against immigrant fighter actually, and let me just check the names here, and Covington's, yeah. So it was like transported to the hospital. Yeah, okay. After UFC 275.
Oh yeah. I think I heard something about that. Colby lost.
Yes, he did. Colby Covington transported to the hospital with broken jaw after UFC 25 loss to Kamaru Usman.
Oh yeah, Kamaru was a bad motherfucker.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I'm sure the anti-Trump people are really excited right now.
Yeah, I was about to say it. Actually, not to get too much into the weeds, like I just said, but this actually is pretty poetic justice. Cameron is actually an immigrant, like I said,
yeah.
And I know that it is just fighting, but it's hard to not put a political spin on this, especially because Covington married himself so much to the president, so he did make it political as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, Cole. Yeah, I mean, well, we there's the old saying, don't write a check that your ass can't check.
Can't
cash, yeah,
yes.
Whatever. But
right. He did. He really did write that check with the picture with the president himself, all like,
Yeah.
and talking talking. I'm sure he talked a lot of shit, that to Cameron. And so, like I said, poetic justice. I don't even care that it's shot in Prada. That I love this story.
Yeah, well, also, like I think like couple weeks ago, Trump was at the UFC event in Madison Square Garden.
Yes, I heard about that
building.
too. Yes, I heard about that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was when there was a string of booing stories about him. He was booed at the World Series, and then exactly. So
also, it's kind of weird because his businesses were in New York, Trump Towers and stuff. You would think there maybe it'd be like maybe half of the crowd would cheer him, half the crowd would boo him. But no, I mean, I think he got booed more than James Dolan.
Yeah, and that's saying something. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Knicks suck.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I heard some people. I heard this one guy being like, shut up, support him, whatever. But yeah, mostly he was booed, which you're right, because of his businesses is one thing, and then also something we don't talk about here on the show is like what percentage of fight fans are actually conservative or non-political or liberal, whatever. That's a whole other question, and you could say that maybe some of them are more conservative.
Maybe. I think it depends. Well, I think the thing is, we talked about before, with the history of the UFC. I mean, Donald Trump, he really did help the relaunch of the UFC because when they brought it to New Jersey, a lot of the fights in the early 2000s, 2001s and stuff, they took place at the Taj Mahal, and a lot of the.
And we've talked about that when we talk ringside. Every time we're at the Taj Mahal.
Because also he had a lot of boxing events there at his casinos, with Mike Tyson and some other fighters. So it's like. I mean, that's what made New Jersey a great place for boxing in the 80s and 90s. It was, like in the late 80s, early 90s, it was, Las Vegas was number one. I mean, of course, and number two was New Jersey, and number three was New York. And then when the casinos started, drying up, and the boardwalk, then all of a sudden it became, Las Vegas, and then New York, and now. In the last couple of years, we've seen New Jersey come back. So yeah, but I think it's also, like Dana White is a real friend of Donald Trump. So it's like,
and I think I heard that too. So it's like, it's interesting. It's probably in within the world. It's the fighting is probably like you have to have some respect for him because he's probably as infamous. We talked about the whole witch hunt against it with John McCain. He in the 90s, the whole witch hunt against UFC. He's probably as infamous for helping the sport, as McCain was infamous for going against the sport in the 90s.
Well, McCain eventually came around once the sport got regulated and stuff like that, and
indeed,
and with Trump, it was Trump was always like a supporter, and like he was a supporter from day one. That's why the UFC. That's why Dana and some people in the UFC have a strong allegiance with Trump, and even Tito Ortiz. I mean, Tito, of course, was on the Apprentice one season, the one with when they brought back Omarosa and they had Lennox Lewis and those people. But Tito says I see how he does his business. And he talked about it with DJ Vlad, the interview leading up to the fight with Alberto Patron, Alberto Del Rio, whatever you call him nowadays, and. He says and Tito Ortiz is a Trump supporter. He's a Trump supporter, and he's for gay marriage, but he still supports Trump, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of some people actually called it messed up because Tito is half Mexican, and Tito's but Trump is saying is that the people who are the rapists and the drug dealers from Mexico, and also there's a lot of percentage of people that are in the sex trafficking trade, from Mexico. It's like, well, yeah, but I personally think the majority is Russia, but I don't know what the percentage of the percentage of that is, but
Yeah.
it's like it is kind of messed up, but I also accepted it's one of those things. It's like, well, it is what it is. I still like Tito Ortiz. I don't agree with him on politics, but he's still my favorite fighter, and I can still have dinner with him.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, hopefully that's where we all get to, and yeah. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So Covington, made it political doing that, and then also Trump has made the sport political when he had the whole his famous clip bashing someone ringside. Forget what that was, where that was, but yeah, he had a famous clip of him coming out of the stands, and bashing that guy ringside. And he actually put a logo of CNN over the guy's face. So yeah, so that was kind of ridiculously comically, political, and I think in completely poor taste. But
with fighters, I mean, like the whole politics thing. It's like, sports and politics should be separate. It's like, yeah, they can have whatever political things or whatever, but it's like sports. It's more like to get away from that and to get away from, like.
Yeah, that's what you say a lot. He likes to call this the escape zone. Because you view sports and fighting as like an escape from real world issues like this.
Well, yeah, and that's why we really don't talk much about politics on here, because it's like also.
I'm sure for the fans that agree, though, they probably think we talk about politics too much.
It's like, because also think about it, like when we were doing the community access TV show, I said like, hey, listen, Gabe, these people here who are fight fans, they're watching, all the NBC news shows, and they're watching CNN and Fox News, they want it. We got to at least be that 1 hour show that where they can forget about that stuff. It's like, let's forget about that for 1 hour. I mean, of course I had to compromise with you, but
right, exactly.
Because but I also imagine like a fight fan just going like, oh dude, I just want to talk about sports. Can this guy just shut the fuck up? Get him off my TV.
Yeah, but we try and reach a wide audience here, but yeah, and then but then the other thing is, they should be separate, but it's hard, because then the fighters that really believe in these things want to speak out about it. So Covington, who does a picture with Trump, and I'm sure other fighters have spoken out on the other side of the aisle. You know what I mean? So it's like they do that of their own volition. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And but if well, but the thing is with in fighting, it's it's like Donald Trump. Like I said, he's had a lot to do with his success of it. With his casinos, and some of the best fights have taken place at the at Trump Plaza, right. And historically, and of course he is responsible for bringing the UFC back into prominence, during that whole witch hunt thing, and and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, over the years you see him running for president, and how he's behaved. It's like, okay, as the president, and as a just as a human being, it's just like, oh man, I don't want nothing to do with him.
Exactly. I mean, that is the other thing. You can be good at you can be good at a business. I actually disagree that he was, but he was good at certain things about the business, and you can be good. You can be good at that, and you can be good at promotion and do that type of thing and have that legacy. But once you come into politics, everything's fair game, and so yeah, and so we've seen the results as a president, and that's why me and Matt disagree with what he's doing, but it doesn't mean that what he did that what he did for the sport, and what he did in his previous lives that can have its own merit. perfect. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And but like I said, he is responsible for some big fights and stuff. But Donald Trump, of course, like I said before and in previous episodes too, when he was running for president, is that he's going to learn the difference between running a country and running a company. Like this is not the boardroom in New Jersey. There are people you have to answer to. Certain things that you think that you may have gotten away with, you're not going to get away with.
Exactly.
Exactly. And right now with the impeachment, kind of looks like it can go either way. It looks like either he'll be guilty, not guilty, or the biggest thing is that he'll be found guilty, but they'll still let him be president.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a way to put it. Yeah. So I mean, so technically guilty is an interesting word, but but yeah, it's like are they does it rise to the level of removal? And that's what the Senate is now going to be talking about. And yeah, so I think I think it is possible that it's still that he will he'll remain, and and it can still scar his reputation. But we talked about this before, but I hope it's just the right things come to light, and then it's done in the right way. Because yeah, despite what people say, he does not actually want this. He does not want to be one of three presidents who has only been impeached. You know what I mean? And none of them have been removed. Nixon voluntarily stepped down. Which before I would have said is actually more likely. I would have said that it's actually very likely he'll step down. But now, who knows? I probably not. But unfortunately, but yeah, it doesn't mean that it won't permanently affect him. When the house votes this week, that will change everything. I believe he will be voted to go on to an impeachment trial, which does in itself change everything. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. Also, the Simpsons have also made a lot of references to Richard Nixon too. Yeah, like the one Halloween where Flanders was the devil and brought him back from hell. And he's like, wait, I'm not doing it. I just wrote a novel. And he goes, hey, I did you a favor.
Exactly.
Or the one where or the one where Marge and Homer and they joined the country club, and Mr. Burns was talking about how he played golf, and Smithers mentioned how he let Richard Nixon win, and Burns and mocked him. He's like, "Ooh, I can't go to prison, Monty. They'll eat me alive."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Nixon's a very, very interesting figure, and we'll always keep talking about it, because up until that point, a president didn't rise to that complete level of completely obvious corruption, and now and now we're here again. I believe there's a lot of parallels in Trump and Nixon, but we'll have to see how it actually plays out.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And now we're gonna get into our last segment. This is a good debate. Mm-hmm. Should athletes retire on their own terms? Yes. Mm-hmm. I brought this up because last month, not last month, but a few weeks ago, The Undertaker was on Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions, which is a podcast show on the WWE Network.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk, about Undertaker. When will he retire? He should retire. And Taker says, I don't want to wrestle forever, but I don't want to retire because people are telling me to retire. He's like, I want to retire on my terms. And of course, we've all seen with athletes, whether it be boxers or basketball players, they've all said, when I retire, I want to retire on my terms. And even right now with Tom Brady, there's talks of, is Tom Brady going to retire after this season, or
right,
or is he going to play football with another team because once again they're saying that him and Bill Belichick are, are feuding. So it's I mean, I don't know. Personally, I think it's when your time is up, your time is up, and I mean, nobody wants to be forced out. Nobody wants to be, or just like in a regular job. You don't want to be forced out. Like the old Dusty Rhodes promo about hard times. It's like, hey, buddy, a computer took your job.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to go. And so yes, there's a lot of kind of kind of negotiating, saving face, that goes into all of that. And especially when you have a political job in the public sphere, there's that whole thing of that one guy that was like no, Trump didn't fire me or resigned, and that whole thing. But it's like, it's like basically all of that is just a saving it, in those instances, that's just a complete saving face, but but yeah, no one does want to be pushed out. It's before their time, and no one also, in the world of fighting, it's it's no one does want to and I guess in regular sports too, but it's different. No one does want to go out on a loss is the other thing. So yeah, I know. I guess you say that when it's their time, it's their time. I actually think that there is a lot to be said for finding the right moment and going out on a high note on your terms, as you would say. So. Yeah. So yeah, I actually kind of agree that you should try to do that. But what you don't have control over is if you go in for another fight and then it's a loss, whatever.
And then there's also the body too. It's like, can your body still hold up?
Yes.
And
yeah.
I mean,
those are both different considerations in team sports versus, fighting as well. Fighting, it's one-on-one. Team sport, unless you're the one that fumbled the last goal or whatever, unless you are the one, you can always push the blame on someone else.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, like I'll use this analogy, like Michael Jordan when he was on the Wizards. It's like, I mean, his last year, he had like a knee injury and stuff, and he played through it and stuff. But you could tell like he wasn't the same Michael Jordan. I mean, yeah, he won some games, and he was. I mean, yeah, he saw like glimpse of of his greatness, and he even made some game-winning shots. But at the end of but it wasn't the Michael Jordan of old. It wasn't the Michael Jordan, from the Bulls era. I mean, right now, I mean, even Michael Jordan is still good at playing basketball, like pickup games and stuff. But Michael Jordan now is just average. It's like almost anybody can beat him. I mean, but he can still play. Right. But it's like, if he goes up against NBA players today, young and in their prime, it's like they're gonna smoke him like a pack of Virginia Slims in a woman's prison. Oh, God, I need this being in prison for so long.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I mean that's a good point. So yeah, but I do think and you do have those moments to set it up right. Then yeah, go ahead and do it. And like yeah, I mean no. So yeah, it's also like who knows better about what will hold up. I think it's only. I would like to say it's only the fighter, but really it's not. So it's like only the fighter and the fighter's doctor like know best what will hold up and that type of thing. So that's why I do think there has to be some outside input, but really only a doctor should be the one that's saying like your body actually can't hold up.
Yeah, but also fighters have a history of staying too long. I mean, look at Evander Holyfield. I mean, after the fight with James Toney, that should have been it. I mean, because like Evander was already on the downhill. I mean, no way was he ever going to get another shot at a world heavyweight championship. It's like, I mean, James Toney was entering I mean, James Toney by that time, he wasn't the same James Toney that won at middleweight and super middleweight. And, I mean, Tony was kind of getting there in age himself, but he was still, I mean, well, of course, he also just won the cruiserweight title, too. That
Right.
fight we did on ringside,
Yes.
and Vasily Jurov.
Yes.
But when he
Yes.
fought Evander Holyfield, that was an old Evander Holyfield. I mean, a young Evander Holyfield would have, would have beaten him.
Yeah.
This Evander Holyfield, he was slow. He got his ass kicked.
Mhm.
And, it was clearly a sign that Evander Holyfield needed to stop fighting.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and we've talked about that before too. We've argued this same thing before about like can like going back and having a bad performance, a less than stellar performance, can that also like ruin the legacy that you would have had?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody doesn't have that Brett Favre career where it's like, you can go on and play into like your mid to late 40s. It doesn't always work like that. It's, when your body can no longer do it. And, as strong as your mind is, like if your body can't physically hold up to it, you can't do like the same kind of push ups that you would do when you were younger, or,
Right.
you can't, your reflexes are slowing down. It's time to get out of there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, because can you imagine if your let's say if your father was a fighter and your dad's how old?
Yeah, no, I mean, so that's what happened because my dad is like 70 plus.
Oh yeah, 70. Well, imagine if he was like in his 50s and stuff, and he was still fighting. I mean, like he'd be well if he had fought on to his 70s and now he's in his 70s. I mean, like your dad would probably have a lot of brain damage by now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the other thing. It's one thing for it should be in a team sport, or especially like gymnastics, Olympics, like that type of thing. That's very different because you can keep your body, you can condition your body to keep going.
But there's
and
also
like
leg injuries, ankles, arms,
true.
backs.
True, that's true. That's true. So yeah, but yeah. Anyway, my dad does ride his bike every day, and that's part of what's kept him that kept him healthy. He's much healthier than men his age. You know what I mean? So but yeah, but so if he was just if he was just like Lance Armstrong, that's one thing. He could stay this healthy and stay competing. But yeah, in terms of these other sports, because of injuries and that type of thing, yeah, he would not be in the same shape now, and yeah, he probably would have had to retire a long time ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like when your time is up, your time is up. It's when you're at a especially when you also work at a regular job. It's like once you're like if you do a job where you have to where you're like lifting stuff, or like you're driving a truck, or you're
Yeah.
moving furniture or whatever. It's like, okay, you put in a hard day's work for years, you give it your best, here's your pension, and well, hopefully you get a pension, and then you just go on and move on with your life. You go and
Yeah.
do something else.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. Even a strenuous job. Yeah, that's right. You do have to. There's a reason they stop. There's a reason they don't have someone working there who is maybe 50 but 60, 70. There's a reason they don't have people working those types of jobs anymore. And really we shouldn't have people working past like 75, but they do, but they don't do that type of work. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's like, well, I can see if you're like a writer or something like that, because there's a lot of writers in their 70s and 80s and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
no,
that.
that's fine. That's completely creative, and that's something you can do no matter what, and from anywhere. But yeah, something like something where you have to show up for a job and like whatever. Yeah, there's a reason they don't keep someone on when it's like you have to lift 40, 50 pounds every day, and that type of thing, or you have to travel far, or you have to whatever it is. There's a reason there's only certain jobs that people that old can do and do. But yeah, I do think we should also have the ability for retirement, unless they're a writer or television producer. I don't know.
Yeah, or a musician or whatever. Like, think about it. How many? Matter of fact, I was listening to this on the podcast Wrestling Soup. They were talking about how many bands from the '80s and stuff that are still alive after doing so much drugs and whatever. I mean, look at Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck? I mean, that guy did a whole lot of shit, and on top of that, bit off the head of a vampire bat, and yet he's still alive and kicking.
Yeah, and it's still sometimes does performances. Who's the one that they always make the joke about? Keith Richards. They make the joke about that because they're like how many drugs did this guy do? How much is it? And are you sure he's not dead yet?
A lifetime of cigarettes, and he's still alive and kicking. And Steven Tyler, he kind of puts it, he's sort of up there, but Steven Tyler, he quit drugs around the 80s, so it's like
that's the other thing. Like I was saying, it really depends on what you do. Also, it depends on everything you do has an impact, and so quitting drugs, you can go further. Maybe Keith Richards didn't do as many drugs in later life as we think, but who knows? But that stuff like that, drinking heavily, smoking.
No, we still got some time. But
timer.
Yeah, well, because everybody, or Frank Sinatra, Sinatra in the, towards the end, I think they said his voice was shot, or and but that also came from years of drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, by that time, his friends Dean and Sammy, they were dead. So
and also pushing your voice too hard can have an impact, even if you don't do as much of the stuff. This is controversial, but I think Mariah Carey pushed her voice too hard, and so the whole controversy of did she lip sync, did she not, part of it is maybe.
Well, she was in Boston not too long ago, and also I saw her on Instagram performing. She does this whole Christmas thing, and she's she can still knock it out of the park, but it's just that.
She doesn't have the same, she doesn't have the same ability that she did when she did Emotions. I mean, that thing in the middle, I don't think she could do that nowadays.
Yeah, it also makes you wonder, what is the future hold for Ariana Grande's voice? I mean, because she's she's been compared a lot to Mariah. They call her Baby Mariah. So it's I mean, I know she doesn't smoke or anything like that, but it's is she taking care of her voice? Is her voice gonna blow out soon? I mean, hopefully not. We pray that it doesn't.
Exactly. That's always a consideration. But if you take care of it, if you lay off of certain things, then you can you do have the ability to go farther. But sometimes it's better to leave your stamp and go. I just recently watched the movie about Judy Garland. She left a stamp forever. Her Janis Joplin,
the Renee Zellweger movie about.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was Well, by that time she was kind of she was on the downhill because her voice her voice was getting shot. Right.
Yeah. I mean, so that's part of it. I don't think she did die, but in the right after the London concerts, but I don't think she would have lasted that long, or certainly not been at that level. Much longer. So
yeah, especially in are very, not singers, but we talked about this before, the characters on Mad Men, the people,
yes,
the characters that the actors played on Mad Men, they wouldn't be around today, because after so many years of smoking and drinking, it's John Draper would eventually died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'd all be, they all would have died of like lung cancer or breast cancer for the women, or whatever.
Well, I mean, yeah, they did. They did. They just didn't know what was actually happening to them. So yeah, I think yeah, if John Draper or any of those guys were real, then yes, 30 years later, 40 years later, they would be. You know what I mean? And the guys that they're based off of probably did. They just didn't have awareness of those health problems, and what caused them, during that time.
Yeah. Also, January Jones's character, her character, like died towards the end of the show because she had cancer.
Mm.
And remember, like she was on that, she was with that politician about
I don't know if I got that far, but
yeah, you told me about that. You said like she was with this politician, about anti-smoking. She says all this information, it's still not going to make her stop smoking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I did tell you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to look back at that episode.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, athletes, it just depends on the mind and the body. I mean, hopefully Tom Brady can play for another 2 years or so, depending on how well his body holds up.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to end it right there. Ringside with Matt and Gabe is this Saturday, and it's a double feature.
Yep. Sugar
Ray Leonard versus Wilfred Benitez, and Roy Jones Jr. versus James Toney. Mm-hmm. And this is actually our last show of 2019. All right. We'll be back. We'll be back the second week of second week of January 2020. That's when we'll be back. And as far as another episode of Ringside, we'll keep you guys updated on that. So, from Beantown to your town, this is Beantown Beatdown. Matthew Burris,
James Thomas.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.